Good morning, YouTubers. It is Saturday morning, probably 8 or 9 a.m. in the morning. And if you can tell, I am riding the XPeak right now. My wife is following me in the Monarch. I rode the Monarch halfway out here, about 11 miles. We traded, and I'm riding the XPeak back. Now, I've been riding the XPeak now for months, and the Monarch just for a couple weeks, maybe a week. And I tell you what, the riding styles could not be any different. I mean, this XPeak, when I got on it, it just felt so different after riding the Monarch. I'm very leaned over on this bike, and I've been comfortable on this bike for months. But I will give the comfort to the Monarch. I think once I get a suspension seat post on the Monarch, I will probably ride that one exclusively. The XPeak is nice, but man, I'm really leaned over. And it just feels weird after being on the Monarch for about a week now, maybe less than a week, and you're really upright. So I would say if you're looking for comfort, get the Monarch upgraded seat and maybe a suspension seat post. And if you're gonna shell out the bucks for a suspension seat post, maybe get the real ones that's like the 2 knuckles, not the Lectric one, which is like looks like it's just a spring inside of the seat post, but it works. So like if someone gave it to you, but if I'm gonna buy one, I'm gonna go ahead and spend a little more and get the better one. But yeah, now I'm on the XPeak. I do like the pedal assist on the XPeak better. I feel like it's way smoother. The Monarch is very jerky. Like I said, there may be a setting, but their default settings are not meant for the smoothest pedal assist. Like here, I feel like I can pedal. Like there's a couple times on the Monarch where like I come up a hill, and I'm usually not on pedal assist, and I've turned the pedal assist on, and it takes a second for it to kick in, or it's a delayed reaction, and I have to end up putting it on boost mode just to get me moving again because I can't get the other ones to do it. Where on the XPeak, the power delivery is kind of instant, but it's very smooth. It's almost hard to explain. It's almost like you're pedaling harder. You don't feel the engine pushing you, where on the Monarch, you kind of have to crank it up in order to feel it, and then you end up lowering it once you get moving. So, I will have to give the comfort to the Monarch, the power to the Monarch, the transmission, if you will. When I talk about the power delivery, I will give it to the XPeak. The XPeak has a far superior power delivery, at least I think. I shouldn't say far superior, but much smoother, much nicer. So I'm going to try to tweak the settings on the Monarch when I get back to see what the deal with the pedal assist is and how I can match it to the XPeak, because I'm really used to this one. The XPeak, because you're leaned over, does take weight off your butt. So if your butt gets sore a lot when you're bike riding, it will probably be more sore on the Monarch because you're sitting more upright. You got less weight on your arms. The XPeak, you're leaning forward, and a lot more weight is on your arms. So I could feel a lot more weight. And this bike just feels a lot smaller now after being on the Monarch. I feel like I'm riding like a scooter, like a Segway. Like my entire body is just up in the air, and I just got like rollerblades on, if you know what I mean. So that is a little bit of a different feeling than the Monarch. The Monarch, the bike, like is in front of you. Like if you were to hit something with the Monarch, like if you ran into a wall, you would fly into the handlebars of the Monarch because that's everything in front of you. On the XPeak, you fly off the front of the bike. There's nothing protecting you in the front. Your entire body is above the frame almost. And it's just a weird feeling after being on the Monarch to switch back to this bike. Even though I never had a problem with this bike. It's just, I guess you get kind of spoiled on the Monarch. So much more comfort, much bigger bike on the Monarch. I think I need to tighten the spokes on the Monarch. At a higher speed, I can hear the spokes in the rear moving around. I was able to fix the problem I had with the tire not seating correctly on the Monarch, the rear tire. And I tried everything on YouTube where you let out the air, fill it up a little bit, and then try to move it back manually with your hands. And then I tried using a pair of pliers that, you know, it's kind of hard to get a big pair of pliers to go around that tire. Nothing worked. What finally worked for me, I took all the air out, put soapy water in, which I did on every other attempt. But this time, I overinflated it beyond what you would think. So 30 is the max PSI for that tire, and I had gone to 35 before. It's not enough. I needed to go to 40 to 45, and I was kind of scared doing it. I had eye protection on because I'm like, you know what, I'm out of options here. And the minute it hit like 40 PSI, you started to hear pieces of the tire pop into place, pop, pop, pop. And that worked. So if you have a problem seating your tire, you know, try that technique at your own risk. But take all the air out of the tire, do soapy, it kind of a little bit of a heavier on the soap. So I did a little bit more of the soap to keep it kind of slick. And I put it all inside the rim and the tire, around both sides. You know, just lather it in there. And then start inflating and keep going until you hear it pops. I actually stopped at 30 PSI to see if that had fixed it alone, but it didn't. And I saw that the side was still kind of pinched inward. So your time is kind of limited because you don't want it to dry and you don't want the soap to get squeezed out. So when you notice there's a pinch, just keep going with the air. And that's what I did. I think I ended up just between 40 and 45 PSI. Wear eye protection in case, you know. Now that's on the Monarch. The max PSI in is 30. So if your tire is max PSI of 20, I don't recommend going to 40. But that's what worked for me. You know, do it at your own risk if that works for you. Or if not, go to the tire shop. I tried everything that finally worked. So now that I got the wobble out of the tire, the problem I have now, it appears that the spokes are a little loose, and I can hear them kind of rubbing up against each other at a higher speed. Kind of sounds like there's rocks in your tire, you know, because it's like they just keep turning as they keep rubbing up against each other as the tire keeps turning. So it's kind of weird. So I'm gonna get a spoke wrench, and I'm going to try to tighten it up a little bit and see if I find something that is loose. I know tightening them can change the direction of your rim, like whether it's bent or not. So I'm not going to over tighten. I'm just going to snug them up so they're not rubbing and see if that works. I'm assuming there's some that are really loose. I haven't really checked. I just noticed it on the ride today. So when I get home, I'll do that. But other than that, it looks like a lot of the smoke here is gone. They said it may come back. The skies are finally blue. Beautiful day out. Nice and cool this morning. And I think I'm going to grill something tonight for dinner. But yeah, so if you have any questions, I feel like I have pretty good amount of information. So if you have any comparison questions that you have, if you're debating between the XPeak and the Monarch, I would say comfort, Monarch. Mountain bike, leaning forward style, XPeak. XPeak is a much smaller bike now. Now that I'm on it, I feel like I'm on a much smaller bike. But let me know. So like, comment, subscribe, and I will respond as soon as I see the comment. All right, everybody. Talk to you later. Over and out.